Okay, I'll just do it through that one. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I think we've got a few more people coming, but let's, in the interest of getting away before, way before 5 o'clock, let's begin. So welcome back, or welcome to the First Year Experience Group, and this is our first meeting of the year. My name's Adam Bridgman, if you've not come across me before. We're going to discuss, after Danny's talk, a little bit about the future of the group and introduce the other members of the steering group, 2 of which are here, 3 of which are here. But let's get on. So Danny Liu from School of Biological Sciences has been using response devices, and he's going to tell us how he's been using them in his first year biology classes. I think he's going to talk for about 25 minutes, and then hopefully we're going to have a good discussion after that. Okay, Danny.
Thanks, Adam. I don't pretend, just a disclaimer before I start, I don't pretend to know exactly what I'm doing here. I'm a fairly young lecturer, as you can tell. You've probably taught me before as I went through. So I just want to show something that seems to work for my classes and maybe something that you might be able to apply for your classes too. So if you haven't logged on already, if you could try to type in the m.socrative.com website into your web-enabled device. We can see here from the 7 people who have responded, in a class of 500 is much more impressive. So from the 7 people who responded here, there's 13 logged on. I think we're 8 responses now. We can see that most people haven't actually used or applied an SRS before into their classroom. So hopefully what I'll be able to explain today is how I apply it and maybe how you may be able to apply it too. So in my context is essentially I teach biology, so I teach to introductory cell and molecular biology, and so my subject is very abstract, and the concepts are quite. There's a lot of content in the lectures, and so for me, the students risk being disengaged because there's a lot of stuff to learn, and it's very weird stuff. Molecular biology is all like DNA; it's clear in tubes, and so they don't really know what's going on. And so for me to engage the students is quite difficult. The other thing is I've got 500 large lectures, and so again, if you're swimming in a sea of 500 students, it's very hard for you to have a personal interaction with the lecturer, and so therefore it's harder to, I guess, engage in the class. And so all these together fit together to form potentially disengaged students. And so what I try to do is use the student response systems in my lectures to try to get a bit of interaction going with the students. So, and a student response system is essentially a system that's evolved from an audience response system. And so when they have debates during election time, the worm is essentially an audience response system. And so these student response systems is a way for the talker, the speaker, the lecturer to get a bit of interaction and also get a bit of feedback from the students or the audience. And so essentially the way that student response systems work is that you have the teacher and the audience. The teacher will pose a question and then they'll activate some interface on the student's device. The student will consider the question, they'll think about it, talk with their friends, and they'll come up with an answer. And then hopefully they'll hit a response, and this response will be tabulated live and displayed live on the teacher's screen, which is what we saw before. And then the cycle repeats. So after the teacher does some more material, they can ask another question, students respond, and you get this iterative feedback from your students. So the reason why I first applied a student response system was to try to get over the issue of disengagement. And so using this, I find has engaged students typically. And because I talk fast, as you can see, it gives them time to think. It gives them time to stop hearing me talking at 1,000,000 miles an hour and just to actually ponder what they've absorbed. And so in my lectures, students are typically sitting like this because I talk too fast for them to take notes, unfortunately. And so these questions that I put in when I interact with them, it gives them time to actually stop and think about the material. And so here we go. So that's a typical example. Students say after the lecture to me, explain slower, but I enjoyed using the interactive program. It made the lecture more interesting. So it does relieve student fatigue as the lecture goes on, and it allows us to query students and I guess for them to think about things while the concepts are still fresh in their minds. And so other students say it keeps me engaged to think, and also somehow it makes them attend lectures more often, even though the responses are anonymous. Okay, so what these SRSs allow me to do is do just-in-time teaching in the class, and so I can gauge and correct misunderstandings. from students. And so here, another quote from a student saying that anything they're getting wrong can be noticed before they leave the class, and it helps them to understand. And also it helps them to reinforce concepts. And it's quite powerful to hear students thinking this of themselves, that they actually see the system, this kind of continual interaction feedback system, as helping them to reinforce what they know. And so in terms of students thinking through the material and thinking through how they learn as well, the student response system is quite a powerful way for them to think. And it allows them to learn actively, and also they can see how others are thinking in the class. There's nothing worse than thinking you're the only person in the class who doesn't understand. And the student response system allows you to see everyone else is getting the question wrong too. So it's perfectly fine to be wrong.
Although it is possible that there is just one.
There is possible, that's right. We've had plenty of examples of that. So you don't make fun of them in class, but you point out that one response because it's anonymous, and so no one gets embarrassed. And so you say, haha, that one person, So for students themselves, that they get to actually think about things. It's a chance for the lecturer to slow down and interact with the students. And also they pick up that apparently I care about their level of understanding, so that's quite nice. And for myself as the teacher, it's also good for self-reflection because we can actually get comments from the students via the system, and we can focus on how to make our teaching more student-centered and question ourselves, is my way of presentation effective? How can I improve? And so comments I get from students after the lecture, things like this, they give me tips, Greater examples and analogies would help in my learning. So I apply this and try to improve my teaching. They say things like, more animations please, they're really helpful, so that's great. I'll put more animations in. And they say, speak slower, we want you next lecture. So it's bad and good. So this is a quite powerful system in terms of interaction and trying to help me see how they think and help me help them through their understanding of things as well. So the way that I actually apply this response system during my lectures is, so lecture is 50 minutes, but typically you get there on the dot at it's 1 o'clock. And so for the first 5 minutes, while they're all settling in, I show what I showed before at the start and just a quick question to kind of break the ice. Okay? Then I go through a lot of content, and then I pause for a diagnostic question. Okay, so done again via this system. Some more content follows after that. And then I do another diagnostic, followed by some more content. And then finally another diagnostic. I normally stick to about 2 to 4 diagnostic questions per lecture. And then towards the end of the lecture, I display a post-lecture survey, which is where all those comments came from. And the students can give me feedback on how I went, how I can improve, what they thought of it, how they learned. And I'll show you an example of that coming up soon. Okay, so let's just go through all these 3 types of applications of the student response system that I find fairly effective in my lectures. The first one is the icebreaker. So as they come in, I display something like I did before, makes them scan it. Sometimes the scanning doesn't work as we saw today, and so they type it in. They log in, and I ask them a question that is kind of, it feels collegial. Okay, so for them, it's kind of like if they're scared of the skills test, which is this scary thing in MBLG coming up in second semester, most of them answer strongly agree or agree. And so for them, to see that everyone else is in the same boat, it's actually quite a powerful, personalization for them, being in a very large theatre. And also, having this icebreaker at the beginning doesn't take any time from your lecture because it's at the before the lecture actually starts, before the recording starts, and it allows the students to settle down, talk with their friends, and also just log into the system, which is important. Okay, so after I give some content, so after the icebreaker gives some content, then I diagnose understanding. And with these diagnostic questions, you have to actually quite carefully design them. And I've had bad questions and good questions. And the questions need to be challenging, and they need to be based on the material they just covered, or the way I use it. That's how I design my questions. And it needs to, the options, the distractors need to be plausible, and each of them should try to target a different misconception. Is that a hand up? Or a stretch, okay. Teacher mode, sorry. And so each distractor needs to be somewhat plausible, so it kind of engages discussion amongst the students. And an example most of you probably won't make sense to most of you, but this, what I do here is I ask a question based on content that I covered in the previous 5 or 6 slides, and each one of these distractors will, if they get one of them wrong, I know which slide approximately they are misunderstanding, and so I can go back to that. And so yeah, it's good to encourage your students to discuss responses because not all of them will log on. And it does mean, however, that a question like this might take about 3 or 4 minutes to go through, to wait for their responses and to actually talk to them about their responses. And so you actually need to reduce the content in your lecture, but all the papers I've read and stuff that talk about student response systems, they say even though the content is reduced, the understanding shoots up heaps. And so it's actually a quite powerful way to make sure you only teach the important stuff in a way. Okay, so in terms of the questions that I like asking and the discussion that follows based on their responses, you have to focus on the reasoning and not just say, answer B is right, let's move on. So what I do is I've got these little links that follow from these distractors, and these little links are essentially PowerPoint hyperlinks. And the way to set them up is you actually, when you're actually editing your thing in PowerPoint, you right-click on it, you select hyperlink, and then you essentially direct that arrow, when you click on it, to a particular place in the document. Okay? Which means that if you're seeing students are going answer C is incorrect, let's see why, click on this and it'll take them back to that slide, go through that slide again, and then go back and continue the lecture. Okay? So it's quite an effective way to diagnose understanding and explain to the students what actually is going on in the lecture. Okay, so lecture's done. After lecture, as they're kind of streaming out of the room, I showed this voluntary kind of exit survey for the students. So this post-lecture survey is essentially 4 really quick questions. First one is, I understood the material in this lecture, agree, disagree, that kind of stuff. The rate at which this lecture was delivered is too fast, too slow, whatever. It's very important for me. And so you can see that most students for me, they think I talk too fast. So a lot of content to fit in. But half of them think it's just right, so that's quite nice. The next one I ask is, has this online interactive system actually helped your understanding today? And most of them, 95% I'd say yes, it has improved their understanding of the lecture. And also, in the end, I just give them space for free comments. And they give me comments like this. The skipping rope analogy would work better with magnets instead of sticky tape. So it's fantastic. I use this analogy in my next lecture. The students help me teach. And the other thing is that all these results are tabulated, and so it gets emailed to you via your account that you set up with the system. And apparently Dave is a great lecturer. I don't know who Dave is. And so essentially you get a lot of data from your students based around what they think and how they respond to your lecture. Okay, so the system I've been talking about so far is this system called Socrata. Okay, it's a bit of a web-based software, and the reason I'll explain on this slide why I picked Socrata to use as a response system, not just because it's the first result on Google, it is, but also why it's effective over other, I think it's effective over some other response systems. So first of all, it's web-based and it's free. And so anyone can sign up. We can sign Adam up later on if he wants. Sign up, and it's completely web-based, which means that there's no software or no hardware to buy. Okay, so it's not like those turning point clickers where you have dongles or drivers. Okay, so those horrid things, none of those going on. You don't need to fight with ICT to get your drivers installed in the computer. It's all web-based. And so as long as you have internet, which the university is quite blanketed in now, and as long as you have, some people are sniggering, and as long as you have wireless and a computer and a browser, you're okay. And also, students can use their own devices. So you guys all used, or most of you who logged in, used your own phones or your laptops, your iPads to log in. Which does away with these guys walking away. I always seem to lose at least 2 every session I use these turning point clickers. So it does away with losing the clickers and AV sending you an angry email. That said, Turning Point now does have a web-based response system, which is enabled by mobile phones. I haven't used it yet, but I don't think it's as flexible as Socrata is. Okay, the other reason why student response systems are good, and this applies both to Socrata and Turning Point, yep? Oh, so it costs money as well. There we go. So it's not free. Yeah, I thought it's called Responseware or something, right? Yeah, I tried using it once and it kind of blocked me out. So okay. Oh, okay, but we don't have one in Sydney. Okay, interesting. Yeah, so there is a Responseware thing that is web-based, but yeah, it does cost money. Okay, so all these things are nice because all of you guys, I don't know which 6 of you have never used an SRS before, so it's anonymous. And for the students, it's quite important to stay anonymous. I think the stats are, I think 95% of students say that they'll be more likely to respond if it's an anonymous system as opposed to stick their hands up or be identified in class when they respond. It also promotes teamwork and inclusion. Not everyone will have a device. And not everyone will be able to have a device work with the system, as we saw with the iPhone. And so it promotes inclusion. That's a good thing because it promotes inclusion that you can say, talk to the people next to you and discuss this question. We'll come back together in a minute and we'll go through it and see what you guys thought. Okay. Socrata itself has a very quick and modern user interface, and I'll go through the interface a bit later and show you how easy it is to use. It's also got flexible input, so not only can you do A, B, C, D, E, multiple choice question, you can do true, false, you can also do short answer questions, and you can also pre-prepare a quiz, just like that post-lecture feedback quiz survey that I showed earlier. And also there is PowerPoint integration, and hopefully if it works, I'll show you how that works in the next few slides too. Okay, so in terms of how you use Socrata, it's quite easy. Essentially you log in, so you guys logged into m.socrata.com, that's the mobile student interface. I log into T for teaching, so the teacher logs into this particular website. I think these slides will be online afterwards. Yep, so there's no need to furiously write. And the next thing is after you log in, you select the question style, okay? And then, actually, what I might do, let's display it on this screen. Okay, so this is the interface essentially you get after you log in. Okay, so the room number is 7528. Come on, Adam. Okay, so after you log in, you essentially see this interface here, and this is the teacher control panel, essentially. Okay, so at this interface, you can select what type of question to ask, a multiple choice, true, false, short answer. You can choose to display a quiz you prepared earlier. You essentially run this quiz, and then you show the students a question on PowerPoint. Yep, Leon?
You said you had 500 students in your room.
Limit, yeah, that's a soft limit. It's a soft limit. It can actually go above that. So I think they scare people by saying max 50, but I've had 80, 90 students at a time log in perfectly fine. So I don't know why they saved that. Yeah. So it can go over the 50 limit. Okay, and so what you do then after you ask a question on PowerPoint, and then the students will respond, you'll see the responses on the screen, and then you essentially repeat that process for the next question going on. So let's try it now. So I'll show you, I normally hide this from the students when I'm setting it up, so I'll just display it now so you can see what's going on. So I click multiple choice, and now it's essentially waiting for you guys to hit something on your phones to try and answer this question. So normally I hide the live response from the students so it doesn't bias their responses. Oh, there we go. Oh, fantastic. A and B. How nice. Okay, so that's the multiple choice system. True, false is very similar to that. It would just be 2 columns instead of 5 columns. If we end activity, I don't know. Okay, at least you're honest. Okay, so what you can also do with this system is you can also pump out short answer responses, and let's see how this works. Okay, so let's name one benefit or drawback. Come on. So this here is just an example of the integration with PowerPoint. So this is a website displayed in PowerPoint via an add-in that you can download for free. More engagement, correct? Facebook distractions, definitely. Poor equity among students can afford. That's very true as well. That's actually a very good point, the expletive deleted one. When I did this with a bunch of first-year students, they type in things like, my number is this, call me, or marry me, Danny, or they gross things like that. And so it's not the cleanest system to use doing short answer, but it is quite powerful. What you can do with this short answer is that essentially you can kill off various short answers and then re-show. You can then re-show these options as voting options for the students. Okay, so there's flexibility in the system. Let's slow lecture down as you wait for responses. That's true, yeah. So a benefit of using it is that it forces you to slow down and stop for the student to think and that kind of stuff. That's really good.
I think they put that in drawback.
Drawback? Oh, really? That's true. Disruptions with tech issues. That's definitely true as well. A drawback, yeah. I mean, if you've got a lot of material to cover in your lecture, maybe don't use the response system in that particular lecture. A, B, C, D, fantastic. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so the feedback that we get essentially from the students is that Socrata is great and more lecturers should use it. Socrata is not the only system. There's a lot of systems, like Mark was saying, Google Forms is quite a powerful system too to use, and Google Forms is free too. But a student response system is essentially a way for you to interact with your audience, with your students, and to help them understand content in your lecture, and also to help them feel all at one with each other. Okay, it's nice and fuzzy, warm and fuzzy. So I've got a few, we'll have these online somewhere for you to download. So there's a good paper out by Caldwell in 2007 which summarizes the use of clickers. They talk mainly about those olden style clickers, the turning point ones, but the concepts are applicable to electronic web-based ones as well. But again, this slide will be online afterwards, so we can have a look at that together. So I think that's it from me. Thanks for participating. It's quite fun.
Danny,
Yep,
can I ask a question?
of course.
How many students did you, I'm getting from business school, how many students did you have in the lecture that you used this for?
So because I talk too fast, the students stop coming. But normally I have, so say the max lecture maybe 400, 450. And the students in that size lecture, I'll probably get 60 or 70 logging on. And so what would happen is maybe 5 students, there'll be 1 student with the device and they can chat amongst themselves about their answer.
Okay, so I agree with everything you said, we've been trying to use a response system in our first year course, but we've had a problem with wireless.
Yes.
Students can't log on, so I found it, like, it's a great, fast, they're all trying to do it, and I've now since given up. So I've got 200 people in the room, and the room is supposed to have wireless, and it's not successful. So I just wondering how would the
The lecture theatres that I teach in thankfully have reliable wireless. Well, they do now since 2013. 2012 was okay, but I think Central is trying to roll out wireless across the campus. And so if it does stuff up, and during the strike recently, for some reason that morning, the wireless was out across the university. And so for then, I just, for some reason, sorry? Oh, I shouldn't say that. Oh, I wasn't here. But I heard that the wireless was out, and I heard that the person using this system had to go with hands up instead. So you can tell I'm not used to presenting to these kind of audiences. Yes.
Do they not use 3G?
They can also use 3G, but I'm on Vodafone, so I couldn't do it. I probably shouldn't be saying that either.
There's real issues as well. And sometimes the lecture theatres that are in basements, like this one's quite deep. I don't know we're on the ground here, so you might, I don't know if anybody else is having trouble picking up the signal. But I had to move my lecture. Last year I tried doing systems like this, and with students who didn't have access to the Wi-Fi, when you put it down to students who are willing to use their 3G and can use their 3G, you're getting very small numbers. So the following year I had to move to a classroom. I went into a few different lecture theatres, tested the Wi-Fi using their own phone, and then requested those rooms. It would be great if every room had equal access to Wi-Fi. If you are planning to do something like this, it's good to go into the room that you're going to use it in. Test out the
we
Wi-Fi.
did that, but it's okay for 2 of us, but we got 200.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the new routers that ICT are putting in are quite powerful. They can handle multiple users at once, but maybe they're just in the process of upgrading across the campus. Yeah.
Feedback from students who didn't use Socrata.
Yes.
450 students that on a time about the rest of the students, how did you get feedback from them?
Yep, that's a good question. The most of the feedback I've shown today, the quotes and stuff, it's been a self-selecting group, so fair enough. There have been people who have been on Socrata and stayed behind to either give positive or negative feedback. We have heard from SSLC meetings and stuff that the students have enjoyed this, and that last quote about more lecturers should use it, that came from an SSLC student. And so people generally, I think, even if you're not clicking yourself, you still do engage, I think. I hope. There was a question over here, yep.
I should download that other uni. We did research at the start of the year as to which one, and I love Socrata. We've ended up going with another one. But yeah, one of the good things about this one, and I don't know, there are apps for students.
Yes, there are.
I've got them. I love them via
Yep.
my app.
Yeah, exactly. So those apps are essentially a app rolled, the web interface rolled into an app. So if they don't have the app, they can still use the web browser interface, yeah. But definitely there is an app that they can, yeah. It makes them feel special to have a Socrata app, doesn't it? Yeah.
One of the small advantages of the Google Forms over this is that once they have the link, they don't have to worry about room numbers or anything like that. So every time precious about my battery life, so it logs out every time, so I'm retyping in the number every time I go to do it. But once you get with the Google form, you just give them the link,
And they're in, essentially.
and
Yeah.
you don't have to have anything else to
Yeah, so there is an extra step in Socrata in that you have to type in the room number. If you guys sign up, the room number will be 6 digits long as opposed to 4, unfortunately. But I guess it's a minor step for them. There's no identifying login, which is a bad thing as well, because then that means you can't use it for summative assessment during a lecture. It's only formative.
The step before where you ask them for a student ID.
You can.
Neither and I, we actually use the system we're using Icebreaker on Wednesday.
Oh, Icebreaker, yeah.
And the first question is, what is your student ID?
Yeah, that's true.
And we are able to, they have to agree with it.
Yeah, and put it correctly as well, which is nice. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true.
Can I just ask a technical question?
Mm-hmm.
How are you generating the QR codes?
So via this website. So if you go to that, there's heaps of websites that generate QR codes for you. Just type in either a bit of text or a URL or something. This one's a nice free one that doesn't put ads into your QR code. So if you go to that one, you essentially type in your URL and it can spit you back a QR code.
And are you using 2 computers, one to gather the data?
Yes, so this, I normally run my lecture off my laptop because the videos play better on that, and I run the Socrata system off the computer system here. But like one of the other slides had, you can actually run the Socrata system within a PowerPoint window just by using an add-in that's free. So you could possibly do it together at once.
No more questions for Dan?
Oh, actually, one more.
Yep.
The room number, you can keep that the same for the entire
Yes,
semester?
for the entire semester, yes.
For your entire career, I
Yep.
suppose.
Oh, exactly. As long as, yeah. So I can sell you my room number if you want. It's nice and short.
Did everybody pick up an agenda